So in this lesson, we will look at maximizing your potential, developing people skills to speak well of others, which is sometimes very hard to do. So love believes the best about others. As a believer, you must choose to believe in and walk in love towards your leaders and other members of God's family. As in any family, there will be occasional squabbles. Newsflash, there is no such thing as a perfect family. Even if they look perfect on the outside, they still argue and fight like you do on the inside. And times where you may be offended. Whether it was accidental or intentional, our feelings can get hurt by others, and we must make up our minds in advance that we will not hold grudges and allow bitterness or unforgiveness to rule our hearts. But we will be quick to let the unconditional love of God flow in forgiveness. Now, you can forgive someone, but just because you forgive them doesn't mean you trust them automatically again. It's an important side note to have. But we got to keep a guard over our mouths when we're tempted to be critical or find fault. It's very easy to get in the heat of the moment and say something that you later come to regret, like, you cow. You don't want to say that because that can have repercussions, especially if you're talking to your wife or your sister. They'll look at you and go, move out. So Galatians 5:14-15 in the NLT, New Living Translation says, "For the whole law can be summed up in this one command, love your neighbor as yourself. But if you are always biting and devouring one another, watch out. Beware of destroying one another." So what happens to our relationships with others if we do not control our mouths? It can be damaged, it can become a toxic relationship, and it can even be destroyed. You can be best friends with somebody, but if you both don't watch your mouths, you can start saying some stuff, and before you know it, you hate each other's guts, from friends to enemies, just like that. So be careful what you say. Now we're going to go to Ephesians 4:29 through Ephesians 5, verse 2, also in the New Living Translation. And that says, "Don't use foul or abusive language. No swearing. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them." It's important to encourage, because especially in this world, in this age, not a lot of people encourage others. We live in a world, unfortunately, today that's a lot of me, 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 me. And there aren't enough people saying, we. You're doing good. You're doing awesome. Keep on fighting. Because it's easier to get something done when you have somebody come up beside you and say, you got this. You can do it. Especially at that time where you're like, I just want to give up. So encouragement matters. So Ephesians 4:30, going on, it says, "And do not bring sorrow to God's Holy Spirit by the way you live." Meaning you're saved now, so don't be going and living in a way that's not pleasing to God just because you want to. You got to keep him in mind. Remember, he has identified you as his own, a guaranteeing that you will be saved on the day of redemption. So he's doing his part, so you got to do your part. Verse 31 says, "Get rid of all bitterness, rage, anger, harsh words, and slander, as well as all types of evil behavior." You got to have an attitude adjustment or a character adjustment, and that is not always easy, but it is necessary, because if you want to get to the place where God's called you to, then you got to go through these trials of fire where you go, man, I don't like this about myself. Lord, help me change. Because there's some things that, you may think you're perfect, but you can have something lying underneath the surface that's nasty or just vile. So, yeah. Okay, verse 32 says, "Instead, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God through Christ has forgiven you." Walk around with that mentality that, hey, if Jesus forgave me of all the crap that I did, then I can forgive you for all the crap you did to me. It doesn't mean I'm going to trust you, but I'll forgive you. We're going on to Ephesians 5, verse 1. It says, "Imitate God." So what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to imitate God, just like, looking at, if God forgave me, then I can forgive you. Just, what would God do? Or what would Jesus do? That was a big thing going around, is WWJD. What would Jesus do? "Therefore, in everything you do, because you are his dear children, live a life filled with love." Be the example, the one person that, If anybody's going to meet a Christian, if they only meet a Christian once, be the type of person that you would want to be as a Christian that leaves a lasting good impression, because you never know. You might be the only Christian that a person comes in contact with in their life. And what you do and how you act and the way you respond to things will leave a forever lasting impression. So live a life filled with love, back to Ephesians 5:2. Following the example of Christ, he loved us and offered himself as a sacrifice for us, a pleasing aroma to God. So that's what Jesus did. He did all of that. So what should never come out of our mouth? Cursing, foul or negative words, words that destroy or kill, or that are evil or nasty or vile or mean-spirited. You say them because you know they're going to hurt. Those are the words that you're not supposed to say, because you're supposed to be an imitator of God now, you know? Not a God, but you're supposed to walk as he walked. Follow the example, WWJD. So what should come out of our mouths? Words that create, encourage, build up, bring life, imitate God's words, and strengthen us. So in our next session, we will begin to look at maximizing your potential. Develop people skills to avoid discord and strife with others. This concludes this segment of Back to the Basics on Serving God. I'm Mark Hertzfeld, and thanks for watching.